Is everyone still with me? Apologies, we're a little bit late, so I think I've got 2.5 minutes to present to you. It will take a little bit longer, so please bear with me. And apologies, I'm speaking in English. You would not understand a word if I tried to do it in Portuguese, so hopefully that's okay. So I've got a bit of a challenge today because I wanted to talk to you about technology in motorsport. Any Formula One fans here? Oh my goodness. That means I can't make anything up or lie now because you'll know more than me. But I actually want to flip this a little bit, and I'm pleased to have heard some other talks earlier on today that are talking about the people element of embracing technology advances and driving change. So if I can, I'm going to bring the two together and use the story of Formula One behind the scenes to explain how that works in the world that I've operated in. So, where it began, I need to go on a quick history tour, and actually I think you can probably relate to similar growth trajectories in all of your sectors, whatever sector or industry you're in. Let's roll the clock back to 1894, the very first recorded motor race. This was the advent of the automobile. The car had just been invented. You can see here it's actually happening. Paris to Rouen, 300 kilometers, endurance race, happening on a public high street. There are people going about their business, walking across the street on bicycles, on horse-drawn carriages. In the day, it was called horseless carriage racing. They were horseless carriages. The reason that motorsport began, some have said that the moment there were two vehicles on the planet, there was motorsport, there was racing. And so the reason the two reasons for this to happen was, one, to encourage public buy-in, support of this scary new technology, getting the public to embrace change, but also to use the notion of competition to drive development, to accelerate the development of that technology through the nature of competition. Some would say that sport is war without the bullets. It's a way of accelerating development by putting it under that microscope of competition. Clearly not a safe place to be racing. It's still not a safe sport now, but imagine back then. So very quickly, racetracks were invented and built. The first one in the UK, Brooklands, and then very quickly around the world, countries followed suit. It didn't make it very much safer, but there certainly weren't pedestrians trying to get to work or to school while the racing was happening. At that point, things start to change because now the competition takes shape. It's not just about technology advance or buy-in for the automobile. It's now more than that. People are betting on the racing. It's becoming an entertainment platform as much as it is a technology race. If I move forwards a little bit more, bringing us into the world of Formula One specifically, it was around 1978 that we started to capture data on race cars. You're all too young to remember the little floppy disk. But in 1978, some of the first data loggers pulling 64K of data off a car. It would take 20 minutes to download that after the car had come back into the garage to try and understand insights largely around the engine, the power unit. That's where the sensors were being placed. 10 years later, to double that amount of data. Moore's law has certainly made that a bit more exponential since. But it was 10 years later, and actually these pictures are my own from the Williams Heritage Museum, the largest private collection of real race cars. Almost all of them could still run. And in the background there is the famous Nigel Mansell Red 5, the Frank Williams FW14B. Even back then, regarded as one of the most technologically advanced race cars, but only pulling 128K of data while it was racing around the track, so very, very minimal insight. If I move forward the clock a bit further, my first entry into the sport was 2004, 2005. This is the Red Bull Racing, the RB1. Back then, we were now up to 4 gigabytes of data over a race weekend. Things are really starting to change. Data is now absolutely driving the design, the development of these race cars. We're now not only consuming more data, but we're consuming it more quickly, downloading real time off the car as the cars are on track, looking at ways we can process that data more quickly, take advantage of that information. And so it moves on. If we bring us a little bit further up to date, we now have a global sport. Billions of people watching the sport throughout the course of a season. About 80 or 90 million people on average will watch a Formula One Grand Prix. In fact, the only sports that rival Formula One for viewing audience are the Olympics and the FIFA World Cup. But they happen every 4 years. This is happening every 2 weeks, somewhere in the world on average. So it's a huge platform, and therefore it has now become a huge entertainment platform. It's all about brand exposure for the teams, for their sponsors, for the drivers, for their sponsors. It's very much more than a technology race. But still the notion stays firm. Win on Sunday, sell on Monday. There is a reason that the automotive companies are in Formula One, to expose their brand, to encourage customer buy-in, and to use the sport as a development platform, as a place to accelerate development. Not just the teams now, though. Their technology sponsors also use the platform to develop their technology. It's a great sandbox, a great high-performance sandbox. And that's where I came in. My time with the teams, both Red Bull Racing and Williams Racing, was to manage the technology sponsors for those teams, to go out there, find the best-in-class service providers across all areas of the tech world, bring them into the teams, encourage them to give us their technology for free, and then in return, tell the world how great it was, but more importantly, get that technology to help the teams win races. So if you want to look at technology trends, one place to look would be at the history of sponsors through Formula One, because as technology moves forwards, you will see those organizations finding a place in the sport. You only have to look at the technology, the vast number of technology sponsors in the sport right now to know just where the technology is going. We've gone through the cryptocurrency sponsors, they're all there. We've gone through all of the high-performance compute sponsors and all of the IT hardware, data simulation, data analytics. We're now verging into this AI world, and with all of the cybersecurity. So you've only got to look and see how technology advanced the sponsored portfolios are for the teams to know where technology is going. It doesn't stop there, though. We're looking at terabytes of data over a race weekend now. But think about the next stage on. I was able to work for a time in a motorsport that was autonomous, self-driving racing cars. Those cars need a huge amount of data, predicted around 4 terabytes of data a day just for a car to know where it is in the world, to understand what it can see so that it can avoid those objects, or in racing terms, overtake them. So it's a great platform still for advancing technology and moving that technology forwards. The tech itself, we talk about a Formula One car being an upside-down aeroplane. They're probably more akin to a fighter aircraft than they are a road car. A Formula One car with the driver sat inside weighs 100 kilos less than an empty smart car. Those tiny little cars you park and put in your pocket and go shop. 100 kilos less, and that's with the driver sat inside. But yet, once they reach top speed, we have over 3 times the weight of the car pushing it down onto the road surface through the aerodynamic downforce, the shape of the car. It is simply an upside-down aeroplane wing, getting heavier as it speeds up. These cars, we don't say they turn corners. They change direction. They are literally glued to the track. It's quite an astonishing piece of technology. What I would suggest, though, is to think about when you get to your end of year and you get your high-performance bonus and you decide you're going to spend this on a brand new car, think about taking your 4 million euros or 4 million pounds, because I'm sure you all get bonuses of that size, to go and buy a car that looks like this from the dealership. But before you hand over that cash, the dealer says, just before you put your children in this car and take them to school, or you go to take yourselves to the shops, this car didn't exist 6 months ago. It was just ideas in people's heads. Oh, and if you're not worried still, it's had 3 days of road testing. But it can do 200 miles per hour, so do you want to Do you want to have a go? That's a Formula One car. 3 days of on-track testing, and then it's at the first race with human beings inside it, driving at close to 200 miles per hour, racing against other equally motivated drivers. They are a prototype vehicle. We are never quite satisfied with the design of the car, which is why they often break down or things go wrong, because we're constantly evolving these cars. We're never quite satisfied. That's the technology inside a Formula One car. What is interesting, though, just as the data growth has happened exponentially through Formula One, so has the technology in other areas. So not only are these cars now the fastest we've ever seen in Formula One, ironically, they're the heaviest we've ever raced by virtue of the fact they're hybrid, so there's quite a lot of weight through the battery packs. They're the biggest, they're the heaviest, and they are also the most reliable. So it's not just about adding performance. When we talk about measuring our organization's performance, it's not just about speed, how quick can we do things. It's also about the quality that we do them. We could make a car go much faster, but it would be highly unreliable. This is about performance and reliability. It's why we say to finish first you must finish. A fast car that breaks down is worthless. So for us, that quality, the attention to detail, precision, pride in your work is as important as pure performance on the race car. I've done a quick history tour of Formula One. My clock is ticking down rapidly. I'm going to do a very quick history tour of me, because how did I end up in Formula One? So we found an early picture of a racetrack. This is an early picture of me. You can laugh, it's fine. I was 18 there. Love my Lego. It was the Lego that I wanted to highlight because I'm a mechanical engineer. I went into design engineering, which is how I, through a random route, ended up in Formula One. I found a picture of me building a car because I was trying to keep it motorsport related. You'll be glad to know I didn't explore any career choices in fashion or interior design. Look at the carpet. Or hairdressing. So roll the clock forwards. This was my last race with Red Bull Racing. So I joined the team at the very beginning of their existence, 2004, 2005. In 2016, I'm in Singapore there. I'm with one of my favorite drivers, Daniel Ricciardo. Anyone who knows Formula One know that he should be sponsored by a toothpaste. He's got the biggest smile in Formula One. That was me being very unprofessional, because I had guests, sponsors, probably one of the big tech companies for Red Bull Racing, potentially AT&T, one of our connectivity partners. I'm at the racetrack, I'm hosting guests. Daniel has got into the car when he's meant to be most focused, about to go out and qualify in Singapore, one of the toughest racetracks to drive around, with the walls very close to the car. It's the time you don't disturb the driver. They're getting in the zone. So I left my guests to wander across the pit lane in a very dangerous part of the track, only to go and get a selfie with Daniel because it was my last race. But the fact he obliged was an indication of the culture we had in the team, the support, that we all looked out for each other and we all helped each other. So that's my history, that's my background. What I want to do is talk about the business behind Formula One, because I think for those that aren't a fan of Formula One, you may question, well, what can I learn from that world? My industry, my business is very different. I'm hoping to show you some parallels, some similarities, that maybe just reaffirm what you do is right and working. Most people think Formula One is about the driver. You could probably name a handful of drivers quite easily. They're household names. This is an interesting picture for me because this was Sebastian Vettel, my time at the team, 4 double world championships while I was at Red Bull Racing. Seb there, dramatically thanking the technology that's helped him win a Formula One Grand Prix. This is about human and technology working together, human and machine, not just a human driver beating others. Without the car, Seb is sat on the tarmac watching everyone else drive by. It's a partnership, the driver and the team. If you follow Formula One, you will probably be familiar with actually a slightly bigger team, the race team. 60, potentially up to 100 people for each race team at the racetrack. helping the two drivers take their two cars around the track over a 3-day period as fast as they possibly can. That's a lot of people to work on two pieces of equipment with two customers, those two race drivers. That's what some people think Formula One is. That's probably 10% of the team. Formula One, most teams, in fact, when I finished my time at Red Bull Racing, we were well over 1,000 employees. That's 1,000 people working on one project, all pulling together in the same direction to make that car, or make those cars, the fastest they possibly can and the most reliable. And that's the challenge. How do we keep 1,000 people on mission? How do we motivate them? How do we build a culture that enables them to continually improve and continually strive and drive to get that World Championship success year on year on year? And that's what I want to showcase. So I'm certainly not qualified to talk to you about AI or IT or give you any guidance on that. But my 15 or so years, half of my career, and I know I don't look old enough for that, but it's true. Half of my career, 15 years, inside Formula One, in different roles, technical and commercial, at senior levels. Hopefully I can give you some insights into how we operated the team and see where that goes. The first one is to have a clear mission. Hands up if you could recite your company's mission statement. Actually, that's better than most audiences. I won't ask you to, don't worry. The reason you go to work is to deliver on your company's mission. There might be many other benefits to what you get out of work, but you're there to deliver on that mission. That's the contract you have. So surely it translates then that you need to know what it is. Why am I going to work? Now, Formula One is very binary. It's an easy business to talk about. We make one product, we go racing, that's it. So it's quite easy to have a clear mission statement. But in Red Bull Racing and in Williams Racing, the teams all have a derivative of, we are here to win races and championships, full stop. The beauty with that is that then I can hold myself accountable and anyone in the organization to say, what are you doing today? Is it delivering on that mission? Because if it isn't, why are you doing it? That's quite a simple outlook, it's quite a simple approach, and of course most organizations aren't that binary or that simple, but the message still stands. Have a clear mission. Then you can foster people around it, you can get people to buy into it, understand why they're there, what they're there to achieve. The next then is to create a culture of innovation. And it's really easy to write that on a board. We want people to push boundaries, to be brave, to be courageous, to try new things. It's much more difficult to create a culture that supports that and encourages that. But if you want to embrace new technology, if you want to develop new tech and have people adopt it in your organization, they first have to be motivated to do so. They have to have that innovative mindset so that they're looking for new technology. They're welcoming and embracing new technology. It starts with the people. They talk about data being the new oil. It might well be, but your organization runs on people and the culture that they create. So we've tried to create a culture that was all about pushing boundaries, being first to market, being innovative. Now, we're very fortunate that in the world of Formula One, you get a lot of high-speed footage of the competition. And just as I'm sure you all do in your organization, you are monitoring the marketplace, you are looking at what your competitors are doing, maybe trying to steal some ideas from them, second guess what they're doing, why they're undercutting you or winning business and you're not, all of those good things around doing your market research. We would be no different in Formula One, except our research is looking at the technology in our competitors' cars and trying to reverse engineer that. If that particular red team, I can't say Ferrari, I get a bit noises. That particular red team are going around that corner faster than us. We can look at all of the information that's in the public domain. We know what tires they have. We know the size of those, so we can get some data points from those images. We can listen to the audio from the onboard cameras and hear what engine note, what tone, what revs, what gear they're in. And we can reverse engineer the whole car. We could tell you what tire pressures they're running, what suspension stiffness they're running. We could look at the deflection of the front wing. We could pretty much redesign their car from the information we could glean on the public domain. The problem with that is, though, that by the time we've done that, they've won the race, and we're waiting to turn up to the next race. We always say if you follow the competition in their design ideas, you follow them on the racetrack. You will always be behind them. So the only way you stand a chance of winning is being brave, being first to market, and you being the one bringing the new idea. Let them copy you, that's fine. I worked for Red Bull Racing, which was owned by the Red Bull energy drink company. They were first to market with not only an energy drink for a sector that didn't exist, but then they decided to put it in a can size that had never been manufactured before. Vending machines couldn't distribute it, but they wanted to be different. Look at how many other drinks companies now have cans the same size and shape as a Red Bull can, but they can't outsell them because Red Bull got there first, and Red Bull kept innovating. Same for Formula One. And so that was the key. Be first to market, be innovative, be creative. To do that, though, you have to create a safe space. You have to create a culture, because are there any organizations here that are really deeply into research and development? You know, lots of R&D, experimentation, exploring new tech, new software. Research and development, by its nature, will see you fail lots of times. You push things to failure. You find the limits. You break things. You have to do that. If things go wrong and you blame someone for that, though, then everyone stops pushing. Everyone stops trying. So having a culture where there is literally no blame, no finger pointing, is crucial if you want to encourage innovation. You will stifle innovation in a heartbeat the moment you start blaming someone for it going wrong. Providing, when it goes wrong, they were doing it to deliver on the mission with the best intentions, that it wasn't careless. That's really key. And that's why I have this picture of me and Daniel, not to show that the reason I moved from engineering to marketing was because I loved champagne. It was because when you win a race, you can stand by my side and drink the champagne, but you cannot do that if you're not prepared to stand by my side when we lose. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work one way. We can't all celebrate as a team when we win, but then single someone out when it goes wrong. That's not teamwork. And that's the quickest way to break it down. So no finger pointing, no finger pointing of blame in Formula One. And of course, it is a dangerous sport. Things do go wrong. And it's about how you learn from those mistakes. You know, winners and learners, it's all about learning from accidents, mistakes, failures, where you start to find your true innovation. You know, driving along, sometimes the wheels come off. Sometimes he's still steering. I love that. That was our baby brother team, the Toro Rosso team. That was a catastrophic failure. For the suspension to fail on both sides of the car at the same time is clearly a design fault. That is a team pushing boundaries. Yes, it went a bit too far. Yes, there was a huge FIA investigation. We don't talk about that now. But you have to push. You have to push. No one will have lost their job over that mistake. That was people clearly working hard to get right to the very line. Not only do sometimes your wheels come off, sometimes, hopefully that'll play, sometimes your whole world goes upside down. This is Mark Webber, 2011, Valencia. Not content with destroying a £4 million car, he then destroys a £30,000 steering wheel that was perfectly fine. Fortunately, when he threw the steering wheel out, his radio traffic cut off, which saved all of us from all of the Australian expletives that were coming out of his mouth at that time. A big crash. It proves the technology works. Mark said then that if that had been 10 years earlier, in his opinion, not only would we have been searching for a new car, we'd have been looking for a new driver. And yet he went racing the next weekend, and actually, an untold story, that car was repaired and the chassis went back into service later that season. Incredibly strong, incredibly advanced pieces of technology now. Felipe Massa on the right there, upside down, with the protection of a titanium roll hoop that's inside the car. If the car weighs less than a smart car, the roll hoop could stand the load of a double-decker bus full of passengers. That's 150 kilonewtons. So in the UK, two-story bus driving around could sit on top of a Formula One car and the driver would be fine. That's how strong these things are. But it's learning from those mistakes. Mistakes are fine, as long as they only happen once. If it happens twice, it means you didn't spot it the first time or you didn't learn from it the first time. Both of those aren't acceptable. But to have mistakes, that's part of the learning process. The next is about communication. If we've built an amazing culture for innovation and we've got the mission statement out there, how do we make sure everyone still is on mission? Well, in Formula One, with the teams, how often do you get with your organizations to do a full state of the nation, a company-wide debrief? 6 months? 3 months? Every week? We would do it after every single race. So think about how competitive this sport is, and yet we may have up to 400 people in a room for an hour. That's 400 working hours given up to a debrief, to a communication debrief of what happened last weekend at the racetrack. Bearing in mind 10% of the people are at the track, that's 90% of your workforce are probably at home or in the factory during the race weekend. 90% of your workforce may not have a clear picture of what's happened. Why did we make the decisions that we did? What's going on? The media are saying that Red Bull are selling the team or the drivers are leaving. All of these conspiracy theories and rumors allow your team to all diverge and go off down different paths depending which social media groups they're on or who they're listening to in the pub at the evening. This is a great way of hitting reset, bringing everyone back together. And the teams thought it was worth 400 people hours worth of time to do that. The outcome, the benefit of making sure everyone is on the same page every single race. That's over 20 times a year the whole team would be debriefed in that way. Huge commitment, but so important. That's really where the comms aligns with your mission. The final things are around mindset. This is all very well, but how do I encourage someone to want to change and continually evolve this prototype vehicle? How do I get them behind that? One of the ways is to show them the reason why, to show them the outcomes. This is what happens if you do so. This proves I used to be an engineer. It's the only chart I'm going to show, and I've deliberately left lots of data off because I've forgotten how it works now. This is a season. Every bend on every line is a race weekend. So don't count the bends, but let's say it's 20 races that season. It makes my math easier. The blue line is the Red Bull Racing team's performance. And what we did, one of the KPIs is to measure the fastest lap we have gone round the racetrack that weekend. What was our fastest lap? And what did that look like compared to our rivals? So on here we have the white line, which is the Silver Arrows, Mercedes. You can probably guess who the red line is. Again, can't say that. Throughout the season, we were kind of the fastest car. We were there or thereabouts, the fastest car on track every race. We won the championship that season. But let me show you what would have happened if we didn't do the development that we did. A Formula One car is about 7,000 unique designs. It's hundreds of thousands of components all bolted together. But if I design, I don't know, a bracket or a bolt, and I use it 50 times in the car, it's one design, 50 of them. 7,000 unique shapes going into a Formula One car. But in that season, we put over 30,000 design changes to the car. Every single one of those was a data-driven decision, was not done by gut feel, and it wasn't done for fun. Every single change had a function, had a benefit. It delivered something to the car's performance. That's redesigning a Formula One car 4 times over during a season. And we still call it the same car at the end of the year. But what that did for us at the end of the year, we believe it gave us a second a lap performance gain, 1 second a lap extra. That's a lot in Formula One. That's a minute behind the race-winning car. That's a different sport. But if we play that back to the benefit per race, 20 races that season, you're all far brighter than I am. That's half a tenth of a second per lap, per race, performance improvement. 1,000 design changes a week for a half a tenth a second gain. That's not very much. What did one design change do? It's almost too small to measure. But I guarantee if I walked into the design office and I asked a designer to make a change, one of those 30,000 changes, and the designer was wondering the benefit of why should I bother? They wouldn't stop doing it. They wouldn't not do it because they know that that tiny contribution is part of a bigger plan. It's part of a team effort. Add them all up to 30,000, we win the championship. So they don't question the performance gain, even if it feels insignificant, because they know this is part of a bigger plan. And that's the reason why. That's one of the ways of getting people behind the mission, giving them some good demonstration. And that was how we went racing. We would race the car, measure the car, get all of that data, and use it to drive performance improvement. We didn't stop there, because what we realized was a process that helped make the car quicker, performance and reliability. We then applied that process to the entire business, to every single part of the business, whether it was IT, finance, procurement, HR. Their job was to measure their performance today, get the data, use these data to analyze, come up with development, and do the job better tomorrow than they did it today. Incremental improvements across the entire business, all pulling together towards the same mission. I know I'm super late. Does anyone need to leave, or can I have 10 more minutes of your time? Cool, because I can't, sorry, because I can't finish a Formula One presentation without some pit stop chat. So I'm going to get through this, and apologies at the back, so I'm going to get shouted at. Someone's going to just drag me off the stage really quickly. The best example I can find of human performance, technology, and a strive to continually improve is the pit stop. This doesn't happen for free. This is over 20 people working in harmony, poetry in motion, delivering a series of complex tasks in under 2 seconds. It's incredible to watch, but you cannot get that for free. That's not by accident. This is by design, using data to drive development as much as the human performance piece. I've been really lucky to work in the 2 teams over the last 10 years that between them have shared the world record pit stop until the end of last year when McLaren stole it off Red Bull. But we won't talk about that. This is me in Singapore. This is the team warming up. You don't really need to warm up in Singapore if you've been there, but they need to just get the motion going, do a few practice pit stops. You can't turn the engine on here, so we push the car in. And what you're listening for are two blaps of the wheel guns. All 4 wheel guns should go off together and then should put the wheels on together. So you should hear 2 blaps of noise. We would regularly do practices in under 2 seconds. Back then, that was around about, the world record, I think, was 1.928. It was just under 2 seconds. Here's a team, though, at the back of the grid. I was here again. This is Williams Racing. We hadn't won a point that season. We were going racing knowing very well we weren't going to score anything. How do you motivate a team to get them to put that much effort in when they know full well they're not going to win? That's a bigger challenge. That's a cultural challenge. So what we did was we looked for small wins. Where can we find the victories? How can we celebrate something? Let's keep the team morale up. And we were celebrating because we were still able to smash world record pit stops. This one's great because the fans were behind us. The crowd loved it. So if it plays, it's not playing. Can we go back? Let's try it again. No, it's not playing. You don't need to watch that one. Let's move on. They're just trying to get me to speed up. That's all it is. In true F1 style, let's rattle through this quickly. 2013, I'm going to take you on a quick journey. Beginning of the season, Malaysia, in a race, we set a new world record. 2.05 seconds. We haven't quite broken that 2-second barrier yet, but this is on Mark Webber's car in the race. That's the only time it counts.
Interactive service along with Felipe Massa and Kimi Räikkönen as the race leader. Mark Webber now hands the race lead over to his teammate Sebastian Vettel and makes his second pit stop of this race. And just like the first, it was fairly neat and tidy as well.
Great, didn't it?
what's interesting there, we got a world record, but the other 2 pit stops that race were 2.5 seconds. The fast average was what we were really looking for, because it's the average pit stop time you build into your strategy. So knowing that the team could reliably do a 2.5 is more important perhaps than getting a world record. But nonetheless, that consistency, that continuity was just as important as high-performance pit stops. Now, if you're at all squeamish, you might want to look away for the next clip. There's no blood, don't worry, but it's someone, it's not a great testament for a pit stop. Later in the year, Germany, things don't go quite as well. Pushing hard, every single pit stop, trying to get a new world record, trying to get the car turned around as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, the area to watch is the right rear wheel, so the bottom left corner. Things don't go quite according to plan.
Like Alonso, Hulkenberg, Button.
So Mark Webber now stops into the pits. You can ride on board with both Mercedes or both Red Bulls. It is a long stop, and there's a bit of wheel spin as he gets away, and he's been waved. There's a wheel gone, and a wheel rolling down, and he's hit the cameraman on the back.
It's fine. We laugh about it now. I love the fact that the Lotus team all just moved out the way. Let the ball go. That was race over for Mark. Stewie on the wheel gun, back of the garage. He's crying. He feels like he's let the team down because it was partly a problem with the wheel gun. Huge FIA inquiry because of someone's now been injured in the pit lane. The cameraman himself was actually pretty cool about it. He broke his collarbone, but he was fine. He's like, I'm in the pit lane. It's dangerous. It's what happens. Nonetheless, big inquiry. That was Sunday. By Monday morning, we have new projects happening in the business on top of those 1,000 design changes per week to redesign the wheel guns, redesign the wheel nuts, redesign the axle that the wheel nut fits onto, redesign the process that enabled an unsafe release to happen, putting more people on there, more spotters. The whole process was changed. Now, I'm not saying that that was the sole reason for what happened later in the year, but later in the year, towards the end of the season, when the mechanics are all fatigued, they've traveled 150,000 air miles, they've worked 80 hours in Austin, in the arid heat of the Austin, Texas desert, they are absolutely exhausted, they go on and break the 2-second barrier and set a new world record pit stop. 1.923 seconds, was the world record that was then held for many years, and it was Red Bull that did it, with some of the learnings from that mistake, with some of the learnings from that failure. This is probably footage I shouldn't own, so please don't put this anywhere online. No photographs. We'll get in trouble. I mean, I can watch people work all day long, but that is insane. That is absolutely insane. There are 80 million people watching them go to work. They make a mistake. There's no hiding it. That's teamwork in action. I'm going to finish with one more film, and then I will let you go, because you probably all hate me already. It never stops. If I was to ask you to put your hands in the air right now as high as you can, without getting off your chair, do this for me, because it's really funny. Put your hands in the air as high as you can. Now, without lifting off your chair, reach a bit higher. You all have a bit extra. There is... I do that with students, they love it. There is always something extra you can give. There is always a little bit extra. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes you need people to encourage it out of you. But there is always something you can do. And even though on this new car, the tires are heavier, the wheels are bigger, the teams haven't stopped. And they are still doing world record pit stops. This one, Brazil 2019, it took until last year to be beaten, 1.82 seconds. And I'll show you where that 0.02 seconds was found. If you watch the car come into the pit box, he's slightly to the left. Sorry, slightly to the right. You see how the mechanic had to just nudge across? That's the margins we're talking now. That tiny readjustment means points of a second lost. And you can watch this on YouTube anyway, so I won't bore you too much with it. But there's one thing I did want to show you in this clip. Because you remember the problem that happened in Germany in 2013, and we changed everything. The one thing we didn't change was Stewie on the wheel gun. Still there, still in the pit crew, still doing world record pit stops. If you want to embrace technology and you want the people in your teams to not only embrace it, but look for it, actively look for improvements and for change, you cannot do that if you punish them when they get it wrong. And that's teamwork. That's high-performance teamwork, hopefully with technology as part of it. And that is my presentation. I am well over time. I am so sorry, everyone. But all I will leave you with is, if you want to have a fast car, you need a fast business. Replace fast with agile, and you're there. That's my team. That's who I've worked with in the past. Amazing people. Surround yourself with the absolute best. When you're all pulling towards the same mission together, then you get to celebrate a lot of fun and drink a lot of champagne. Thank you very much.